Did you know that parents rank financial literacy as the #1 most difficult life skill to teach? Meet Greenlight, the debit card and money app for families. With Greenlight, you can send money to kids quickly, set up chores, automate allowance, and keep an eye on your kids' spending with real-time notifications. Kids learn to earn, save, and spend wisely, and parents can rest easy knowing their kids are learning about money with guardrails in place. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/Spotify.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
All episodes of A Trial by Podcast are for informational and entertainment purposes only. Much to their parents' dismay, neither host is a lawyer, journalist, or investigator. Just two people with microphones and Wi-Fi. All actions discussed are alleged, and all parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. For the full legal mumbo-jumbo, check the show notes.
I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Emily.
And this is A Trial by Podcast. We already started the intro. Emily's going to have to do some editing magic with that intro because we just started yapping.
Yeah, hey, hi, how are you?
We also sang along to Chapel Roan's Pink Pony Club. We did we're horrific singers. I will post it, though.
I mean, I thought we were pretty fucking good, so.
I thought
this will be my second audition.
I felt like
to be on American Idol.
We had soul, we had vibrato. I don't know what that means.
What is that?
But we brought it to the table.
That reminds me of the rock song. It's about soul. It's about fire. Hold on.
The rock song.
Yeah, hold on. You have heard the rock song. Hold on.
I feel like we need to start like a separate for Patreon. We just do our yap sessions in the beginning. We just cut them into one episode for Patreon, and it's like a monthly episode. You get an hour long. A yapisode.
I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that one.
That's beautiful. A yapisode. Write that down. Write that down.
Wait.
Yeah, we need a yapisode.
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna put that in my notes though.
Yeah, put that in the notes because if we cut it out, we're
gonna forget.
Okay, so let's do it. Last week we ended. Victoria Cilliers had just plummeted 4,000 feet to the ground, falling at 60 miles per hour, and survived. Okay,
that's bonkers.
We had a lot of lead up.
Couldn't be me. I'm telling you right now, my bones would be like no.
Especially your ankles. Your ankles would not make it.
They're already broken.
So, yeah, obviously there's a lot of lead up. There was a lot that we talked about with Victoria and Emile's relationship and everything that had led up to this, and just what a fucking piece of garbage, on fire, dumpster, human shit this guy is. But the point is, where we are in the story now is she is lying on the ground, barely conscious, in agony, but she's breathing. And everyone was fucking shocked, okay? They just watched someone fall out of a plane 4,000 feet and hit the ground, and she's alive.
I don't even know what I would do in that situation, because you see a human being fall and smack the ground and literally feel the earth move from the impact. What do you do?
I would
me too.
Up.
I'm like, because you can't really. I don't know.
I think I would vomit.
Yeah, me too.
I can't even imagine what this woman went through too. But everybody knew. I mean, it was a miracle.
Yeah.
It was a miracle because by all rights, that fall should have killed her on the spot. And instead, Victoria opens her eyes to find herself broken but alive. And she later said the result was a mix of things. It was skill, it was luck, and it was the fact that she had landed on that freshly plowed field that softened the blow. Plus, the weather that day was actually not ideal for a jump. So the plane was actually flying lower than it normally would be. They had to fly lower because of the weather. So if the weather had been good, it was
just like a culmination of small miracles throughout the whole time.
Yeah, it reminds me of Alice in Boathood. That's what she said. It's like little miracles.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but it's like if the weather had been nice that day, she'd be dead.
She'd be way up higher.
Yeah. She would have. I think she would have been like 1,000 or 2,000 feet higher. Like I think she probably would have been dead. And they also point to the fact that she was a small woman. She was very petite. So they say that this probably improved her chances because it let her body decelerate enough, even with the unopened parachute just kind of flailing in the wind.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. But yes, lots of little miracles that all added up. It was luck. It was skill because she was trying to decelerate herself as much as she possibly could. But none of this meant that she got off easy, however. Actually, far from it, because she was gravely injured, as you can imagine. She's not walking off.
I'm sure she's like barely alive.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. She had shattered her pelvis. She had broke her back in several places, and she had broken multiple ribs. Her right lung was partially collapsed and her bladder damaged. She had lost a lot of blood, and it was mostly from internal bleeding. Everybody knew that it was, she's alive for now.
Yeah.
That's kind of the situation that was at hand.
Yeah.
And it was the kind of trauma that you'd expect from a high-speed car crash. She was going 60 miles an hour.
Right.
And Victoria was laying on the ground, writhing in pain, unable to move, as help rushed.
Was she conscious?
She wasn't at first, but she did become conscious in the field.
Oh, my God.
Yes. And she does remember, we'll kind of get into like her memories of looking back, but she remembers being there. She doesn't remember being in pain.
Well, that's good, I guess.
And eventually we'll talk about she's on a helicopter and she remembers she was feeling zero pain because she's just completely in shock.
Well, yeah, and her adrenaline's probably just shooting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said, this is the kind of trauma you'd see in a high-speed car crash. She's writhing in pain. She can't move. At first, she's trying to wiggle her toes. They wouldn't wiggle. So she's thinking, am I ever going to be able to walk again? Am I paralyzed? What is going on? And help is just rushing toward her across the field. Now, she was conscious enough to realize that, like I said, she couldn't feel parts of her body. And this terrifying thought is, am I paralyzed? Like, am I going to survive? Am I ever going to be able to move? What is going to happen? But luckily for Victoria, one of the skydivers that was already on the ground the day that she had jumped was actually a doctor. So
thank fucking God, another miracle.
Exactly. And so this woman basically took care of Victoria until emergency responders airlifted her to the hospital. And like I said, she remembers being on this helicopter thinking, actually, this is kind of a funny note. She's like, I don't really understand why they were like doing all of this. She's like, they're kind of like making a big deal. That was her thought process.
Yeah.
Because she wasn't feeling any pain at that point. And by the point that once she's in the helicopter, she's able to wiggle her fingers and her toes. So at that point, she's like, okay, I'm not paralyzed.
Yeah.
Like, my body's working.
Yeah.
And so she thought this was all overkill. And she even felt a little bit guilty that so many people were making such a fuss about it. That was her thought process. And that just shows you.
Because I'm sure she didn't just watch herself fall fucking 1,400 feet from the sky.
Well, and that just shows you how disconnected she was from what was happening.
Yeah.
She's
like, I can wiggle my fingers and toes. I'll be fucking fine.
Yeah.
She's like, what are you guys worried about?
And good for her. Wouldn't be me.
Yeah, no, I'd be
Would not be me.
I would not even be conscious. I'd be in and out. I'd be like, I can't even, my consciousness can't handle this right now. I'm going to go.
There's this episode of Grey's Anatomy where this one lady, her husband gets shot with a bazooka. And so there's like the unexploded
yes.
bazooka thing. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
I've
It's
seen
like
that
a
one.
multi-parter.
Yeah.
But the point is nothing happened to this woman, but she just won't stop screaming. She's like, ah,
Yeah.
ah, ah. That would be me in
Yeah.
this helicopter right now. Yeah. That actually, I would be a bystander on the field who didn't even know Victoria, and that would be
standing there,
me.
Ah!
Yeah. And I don't say that to make light of the situation. I say that to be like, to make heavy of the situation.
to
Like,
make
I would be like,
real recognize real, man.
yeah, exactly. Like, it is so crazy that she survived. It is so crazy.
And then for her to be like, oh, well, you guys are doing a little too much here. I can feel my fingers and toes, you know?
Exactly.
Like,
But
you guys can calm down.
she didn't understand the gravity of the situation because doctors really had to fight to stabilize her. Like, she was
shit.
not in a stable condition.
Oh, no.
She was very touch and go. She had lost a lot of blood, and her injuries were life-threatening. They didn't know if she was going to make it. But against all odds, Victoria pulled through surgery. And when she woke up in the hospital bed, groggy and confused, the first sight she saw was Emile. Her husband, her loving, caring husband, sitting at her bedside. But he looked anxious, concerned, actually relieved even. In that moment, Victoria felt a swell of gratitude and love. He was there for her when she needed him. That was her thought.
Wasn't. No, he wasn't.
Well, yeah, he's not going to be, but you can imagine you've been having all these marital troubles, and then this horrible thing happens.
You're like, oh
and
my
then
God, this is going to bring us closer together, you know?
like, this is going to make him realize he should be grateful for my fucking presence.
Yeah.
As he should have been, and he wasn't. Now, in the days after the fall, Victoria was in and out of surgeries. She was heavily medicated, and her recollection of what had happened was pretty hazy. She does remember Emile being there in the hospital, dutifully by her side, and constantly texting on his phone. She found it odd that even at her hospital bedside, her husband was obsessively texting, and she was like, who could he be talking to? In fact, it would later be revealed that while Victoria lay injured, Emile had exchanged hundreds of texts with his lover, Stephanie. In one text, sent literally as his wife was fighting for her life a few feet away, Emile wrote to Stephanie, quote, all I can think about is you, end quote.
I'm like so mad right now. I have no words. Like, I just want to fucking junk punch this guy so hard that he can't have kids ever again. Yes. Because why even be there? Like, why even show up if you're going to just be that disrespectful and like... And,
after
like,
you did this, he did this to her.
Literally, like,
spoiler alert.
What are you waiting?
He did this to her.
Is he waiting to see if she actually like does die, or is he waiting to be like, oh,
no,
do I kill her in the hospital? What the fuck?
No,
Emile?
he's just like, oh, like I can't, dude. I would. Oh my God. I would do anything to know what he was thinking when he found out she was going to survive.
Yeah, me too.
That.
Like hey,
he's got to be like, no. He has to be just absolutely shocked.
Yeah, like, are you fucking kidding me? He probably went to the hospital to see it for himself because he didn't believe it.
Yeah. And then he's just texting Stephanie. Yeah, and you would think that after he did this and he sees her in pain, like on the verge of death, and they're trying to say that he would regret,
Yeah.
But he's just saying to Stephanie, all I can think about is you. Really, Emile? You're not thinking about how you fucking shattered your wife's bones?
Yeah, the mother of your two children?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Oh my God. But he shows virtually no emotion about Victoria's accident. And actually, a police officer who saw Emile at the hospital noted how unemotional he was for a husband who had almost lost his wife. And to those...
Good. I'm glad he noticed that.
Yeah. Yeah. And at this point, by the way, no one knows that this was a purposeful incident. Everybody is thinking at first that... Well, I guess not everybody. We're going to get into it. But
it's crazy that they
no,
already
like,
recognize the signs, though. They're like, this guy's being weird for, like, his wife just fucking almost dying in a skydiving accident.
Exactly. So, to those who didn't know the truth, Emile just kind of seemed to be in shock. Maybe, he's being unemotional, he's being cold, but maybe he just doesn't know how to handle a situation so grave. But to the people who knew Emile and how he treated Victoria and their relationship, they found his behavior to be bone chilling. They were like, what in the fuck is going on here? Now, at one point, a day or two after the fall, Victoria looked at Emile with tears in her eyes and told him, quote, "I love you," end quote. She was grateful to be alive and for his support. And what was Emile's response? Silence. Silence. He did not say that he loved her back. And Victoria would later recall how deeply that hurt her. Quote, "which is harsh in that situation. Really fucking harsh," end quote, is what she said about it.
My heart just breaks for her. Man, like...
I cannot fucking imagine. And at this point, she has no idea that he had anything to do with this. So she's just like, why don't you care?
She's just like crushed. Yeah, she's like,
why don't you care that I have been shattered into pieces, literally?
You can't even tell me you love me back? Like, what?
No, he just offered this like half-hearted smile at her, like, oh,
Probably because he's like, hey, she just told me she loved me, but I really love you, Stephanie.
Yeah, pretty much, because that's all he can think about, apparently. That's all he can think about is Stephanie, while the mother of his children is fighting for her life in the hospital from something he did to her. But
I'll never understand, like, why people like that just won't fucking leave the person they're with instead of just being shady. And, like, why are you with her if you... I mean, I get it, because he wants her money and shit and wants to manipulate her and do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
But damn, just fucking leave her and go with Stephanie. If you want to be with Stephanie, go be with Stephanie.
Yeah,
fucking
just
Emile.
get it. Yeah, but that's the thing is he's a fucking loser and he can't make his own money or control his spending or whatever. He needs her fucking money, dude. That's literally why he won't leave her. Is because he needs a mommy to fucking support him because he's a fucking loser. Anyway.
So good, so good, so good.
New markdowns up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means thousands of can't-miss deals just in time for summer.
The denim section is unreal.
Why do I rack? All the dresses.
I always find something amazing.
Plus, buy it online and pick it up in-store the same day for free. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
And not, by the way, if you're going through money troubles and whatever, that's not my point. I'm saying this man who literally won't divorce her and is going to resort to killing her, he's a fucking loser, okay?
Yeah, instead of making it his problem, he's making it everyone else's problem.
Yeah, so don't take that out of context. I'm talking about this context, he's a fucking loser. But anyway, and the worst part about all this is when he was acting like this, she started to feel strangely guilty. Like she had caused this horrible thing that was going to be destructive for their family and was upsetting him. And she felt like she had done something to him. And she actually apologized to Emile for the whole situation, just feeling guilty about how stressful this must be for him. Because now he has to take care of the kids without her while she's in the hospital and he's got to go back and forth and blah, 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 blah. Doesn't that just make you want to, what did you call it? Junk punch him?
Yeah, dude,
I like that,
fucking...
junk punch. He deserves a nice junk. Yeah, he does deserve a good junk punch for sure. Now, after the first few days, Emile's visits were few and far between, despite the fact that Victoria's dad had come to stay with the kids to like take care of the kids so Emile could go back and forth. Emile claimed his work wasn't allowing him extra leave.
Sure.
He's like, oh yeah, I can't really be at the hospital because work, that old boss of mine always forgetting to pay me. And yeah. And she knew at the time, she knew that was bullshit.
Well, yeah. He sounds like he has the worst fucking job and boss in the world, but I have a wild guess that it's not the job or the boss.
She knew that was bullshit. She knew that, hey, if there's any reason for them to give you a little bit of leave, it's when your wife is shattered. Like her bones are shattered into pieces and you have two children.
Like almost on the brink of death in the fucking hospital.
Yeah, So friends started making comments to Victoria about his absence and the nurses started commenting on it as well. One nurse told Emile when he was visiting that like, hey, I know it's hard to visit because you've got the kids and at home and all of that, but you don't have to stick to the visiting hours. Like you can visit whenever you want to. And he's like, oh, okay, thanks, whatever. But then after the nurse said this to him, he never was visiting more. He was always sticking to the visiting hours, and he made no change to his schedule. And so on top of just feeling completely alone and abandoned and scared, Victoria felt humiliated. Like he was humiliating her in front of these nurses who are like, why don't you fucking give a shit about your wife? And she's feeling that emotion, but also feeling embarrassed that she's having to feel that in front of everybody.
Yeah, all these people are watching this and mentioning it to her. Like, hey, why is he being shitty?
Exactly. And for her, the thing that was keeping her going in the hospital was she could not wait to get home to her children, who were not allowed to visit her in the ICU because the kids were so little. The doctors were worried that they would catch a serious illness. And again, the kids were just the only thing that was keeping her going. So when one of the doctors informed her that she would likely be in the hospital for about 3 months due to one of her spinal fractures, she was absolutely devastated.
Well, yeah, she's got to be so fucking lonely, dude. Like, even when he's there, he's like texting some fucking bitch.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. Now, she did end up getting a second opinion about this spinal fracture, and the surgeon basically said that her spine actually might be stable, because that was what they were worried about. Is it stable? Is it not stable? Because if it's not stable, they have to do surgery on it, and then it would be 3 months. But they had her do this like standing weight-induced x-ray to be sure, to make sure her spine was stable. And that was really hard. Like for her to stand up and go do an x-ray was very, very painful for her. And so they do this x-ray and he's like, all right, it's good. But she had been on fentanyl the whole time she was in the hospital. And if you know, fentanyl is very addictive. And they called what she had was a drug addiction at that point, because basically when you're in that condition, they give you a fentanyl drip. And I guess in her case, it sounded like she had a button. And so when she started to feel pain, she would hit the button. And she kind of talks about how she was using this as a sort of mental escape as well. So the doctor's like, all right, your spine's okay, but you got to get off this fentanyl before we send you home. And he also said that she needed to spend time, like a lot of time, sitting upright in a brace to ensure that her spine would stay stable over time. And getting off a fentanyl drip would usually take people weeks and weeks and months. And some people have trouble ever getting off of it, which is very, very sad in its own right.
Well, because, your body becomes, like, dependent on it, you know?
Right. But Victoria, as soon as she heard this, all her mind was thinking about was her kids. And so she cold turkey stopped the
that's
fentanyl.
Also really dangerous.
I don't know. It seemed that the doctors were okay with that. I don't know how long she was on it or how much she was taking. I don't know. I think if you're taking or using anything like fentanyl, you should definitely have a doctor help you with that. Don't listen to us. But yeah, she seemed to be okay. And the doctors were just really honestly impressed, because that is a very hard thing to do. So long story short, they thought she was going to be in there for months and months. But you know how do you know how long? Sorry, this is killing me. Do you know how long she ended up spending in the hospital? Take a guess.
I don't know.
They thought 3 months.
She's a badass, and she wanted to get home to her kids, so I'm going to give her, 2 weeks.
Literally spot on. 2 weeks.
Really?
2 weeks. She had internal bleeding. Her pelvis was shattered. Her spine was broken in multiple places. Her right lung was partially collapsed. She spent 2 weeks in the hospital. See, I think that's the same as Allison Botha. I'm like, you guys are
wild.
Fucking insane. Both of these women
That's
are
crazy, dude. That should be in Ripley's Believe It or Not fucking book. Because how do you fall out of an airplane with 2 faulty parachutes, land in the ground, going 60 miles an hour, probably, and then survive and only spend 2 weeks in the hospital?
And by the way, there would have been nothing wrong with if she spent the full 3 months. It doesn't make other people not as good
weaker.
as them or weaker or anything, but it's just fucking crazy. And again, would not be me. I would have been, they would have said 3 months, I would have been in there 6.
I said, bring me extra chocolate pudding from the fucking cafeteria because I'm going to be here for a long time.
Yeah. It's just wild. Now, when Victoria called Emile, she finds out, I can actually go home in a few days or whatever. And she calls Emile to tell him that she could go home and she was going to need a ride. And he responded, quote, "Oh no." end quote. Explaining that he couldn't get her until at least a few days after her release date because of work stuff.
Are you fucking kidding me, Emile?
When he did eventually pick her up, the pair drove home in silence, and Emile just radiated doom and gloom the whole way home. Victoria found recovering at home mentally easier because she had her kids around, but much more difficult physically. At the hospital, she had a team taking care of her, but at home, she just had Emile, who huffed and puffed around the house, making his frustration at her dependence on him extremely obvious. Then one day, the couple was paid a visit by 2 members of the British Parachute Association, or the BPA. The parachuting community is small, and they're very safety conscious. 2 parachutes failed.
Said, we can't have this on our record.
They said this is the no from us, dog.
Yeah, like this is not normal, and we're gonna figure out what the fuck happened here.
Exactly, because 2 parachutes failing on one jump is an almost impossible scenario. And they were coming to inform Victoria that they had opened an investigation into her accident.
Hell yeah.
When they told Victoria that there were slinks missing from her parachute, and I think last week we talked about what slinks were, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So there were slinks missing from her parachute. She was shocked. She's like, that's impossible.
Yeah, like
what do you
that
mean?
never happens.
What do you mean? If it's like that Jennifer.
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do you mean? And Victoria says in her book, because by the way, if you were wondering in episode 1, like how we knew a lot of Victoria's thoughts and feelings and like details, it's because Victoria
she gave them to
a
us.
whole book about this case. And it's called I Survived. I Married a Charming Man and Then He Tried to Kill Me is the name of the book. So in her book, she says that they explained the slinks had probably broken off and that it was only, quote, the pressure from the brake line pushing against the other lines that kept the parachute inflated enough for you to survive, end quote. So basically what they're saying is it was a miracle of physics. It was pure luck that she had pulled the reserve open when she did, that she was falling at the speed that she was, that the wind was blowing the way that it was, and the way that she pulled it with the amount of force that she pulled it. And all of these things added up, allowing it to open in the best fucking possible way it could in the condition that it was, that slowed her down enough to the speed at which she could survive.
That's crazy fucking work, you know?
And yeah. And that's
like, how does that happen? There's no fucking way that's ever going to happen twice. Ever. You know?
No
way.
If she would have pulled it a second after, you don't know. It could have turned out very differently. Who knows? But so Victoria's like, this is the moment when she realized, like, talking to them, she realized how much of a miracle it was. Like, she knew she was like, quote unquote lucky to survive, but like at that she's like, holy shit, like that is just chance.
Well, I'm sure when they're like, yeah, that literally has never happened ever in history before.
Yeah,
like
pretty much.
I'm sure that probably gives you like an awakening of like some sort. Like, damn,
exactly.
I'm like, what the fuck?
Now, just days later, they called Victoria to tell her, because at first they thought, oh, the slings must have just broken. But then days later, they call her and they say, we don't think this is an accident. It didn't look like the slinks had broken off, because whatever they broke off of would have been damaged. Yeah. And there was no damage. It seemed like they were purposely taken off. They were removed, and they had never been there during her fall. They told Victoria that they thought they should call the police for a formal investigation. Now, Victoria still really believed that this was an accident. She's like, well, no one had my chute.
Like, who would have done this?
Who would have done this? No one had my chute.
Oh my God.
So she's like, this is overkill, but to be safe, she gave them permission to call the police. And thank God she did.
Yeah.
Now, after weeks of not hearing anything from the authorities, the possibility that someone had done this to her on purpose completely left her mind. She kind of like just stopped thinking about it. She's like, oh, nothing really came out of it, because she said she could open this investigation, and then she never heard anything. That is until one day she randomly gets a visit from the police. Now, Emile had been out all day, and without his help, the house had become a mess. So they knock on the door. They're like, can we come in? And Victoria's just embarrassed, but she can't be cleaning up the house and everything.
Yeah.
So she lets the officers in anyway.
Well, I'm sure they're like, yeah, you've been through some shit. I don't care what your house looks like.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they did not care at all. Once they sat down, they informed Victoria that the reason Emile hadn't come home yet was because he had been arrested. Confused, she said, "What for?"
Oh my God.
She didn't understand what he had been arrested for.
I feel like that tells you like how deep into this relationship and like his like control
his
and manipulation she was.
Coercive control.
Yeah, because everyone else was seeing it, including the police officer at the hospital, the nurses, everybody that was like, hey, this is weird that your husband doesn't even want to come and see you ever. Like,
but I think even they didn't think that he did this. They were just like, this guy's a real fucking asshole.
Yeah, But she didn't see that either, you know?
Yeah. So she asked them what for, and they said, quote, "for your attempted murder," end quote. And Victoria was flabbergasted. Her flabbers were gasted. As I saw that joke. I do think that it was a joke made on Morbid, or it might, I don't know. I heard that on a podcast. I stole it. Okay. I'm not taking credit for that joke. Flabbers were gasted. Now, throughout the conversation, she even began to grow angry with the police. This was obviously just some big misunderstanding. She needed him home, not only to take care of the children, but to take care of her. Okay? Mm-hmm. She's not healed yet. And she has 2 kids, and now her husband is gone. Who's going to help her with these kids? How is she going to get around? She can't hold the baby. The baby's a few weeks old. She can't hold the baby. So she continuously asked them, begging to speak to Emile, thinking that if I can just talk to him, she can clear this whole thing up. Because this is all just a big misunderstanding. But the police would not allow it. And that evening, Victoria went to the station and gave them an official statement. They asked her to tell them about what happened that day, and it forced her to relive extremely traumatic memories. When they asked if Emile had access to her chute before the jump, that was the first time it hit her that Emile, actually, you know what? Emile had taken the chute to the bathroom when he went to the bathroom with April. And that was the day before when they were renting the chute.
Yep.
And she did tell them that, but she felt guilty for telling them that because she knew, she's like, oh, that doesn't look good for him.
Yeah.
And she knew it was going to be used as evidence against her innocent husband being accused of something he did not do. Before she left, they downloaded the data from her phone so they could read all of the messages between her and Emile. And again, she just feels mortified because obviously their marriage has not been going well. Not only is she going through this traumatic thing physically and mentally, but now it's emotionally because everyone's reading her fucking business.
Yeah.
And that sucks. I would not want the police reading my text messages. So detectives interviewed everyone that had access to this parachute. And from the start, something about Emile set off their alarm bells. One detective later said, quote, "He just made me very uncomfortable right from the get-go. He was supremely confident. To be that supremely confident did not feel right."
Red
end
flag.
Quote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Emile spoke to the officers with an easy and almost cocky demeanor, insisting that it must all be a tragic accident or perhaps sabotage by someone else. He even floated a bizarre theory. Maybe a random killer at the airfield had snuck in and tampered with Victoria's parachute. And by the way, statistically, and I don't have numbers for this, I should have prepared some, but this is just coming from the top of my head. Statistically, random murders where someone kills somebody or tries to kill somebody that they don't know and there's not some type of personal motive are so fucking rare. Mm-hmm. Those are so rare. So the fact that he's just like, maybe there's a killer out there on the loose that's just gonna
just some random person
go in and tamper with parachutes.
Yeah, let me just go remove a couple slinks and then maybe I'll see it on the news later. Like, who's doing that? Nobody.
Yeah. So he also implied, with zero evidence, that maybe Victoria had sabotaged her own parachute in an attempt to harm herself.
No fucking way did he just go there. No fucking way, Emile.
I don't have words.
Literally.
I'm not, you guys know I'm against violence. We shouldn't be junk punching people, but I don't
Some people
junk
deserve
punch
it.
wouldn't cover it. I mean, I don't mean any of this literally, but I just want to chop this man into pieces. I don't have words for how much I hate this man with every fiber of my fucking being. I really don't. He's trying to blame it on her, saying she tried to kill herself. Are you fucking kidding me? Oh my God. And by the way, it was so dumb when she's literally alive to say like, hey, yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah, like what the fuck?
What a dumb way to, oh my God, so stupid. Now, the investigators also find these explanations absolutely absurd. They're like, literally no.
I can't even imagine them looking at him like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, really, dude?
Literally no. Now, Emile's lack of concern and his overconfidence only heightened their suspicions that they were dealing with a cold-blooded killer.
Yeah.
So Victoria returned home with her dad and stepmom on the way to take care of her and the kids again. The police came to the house a second time to let Victoria know that Emile was out on bail, though neither he nor she were allowed to contact one another, and he was not even allowed to enter Wiltshire County. So he's banned from her, basically. And police then told Victoria that they had found messages between Emile and Stephanie that proved that he was planning on moving in with Stephanie. They also found proof of extensive debts. Of course, Victoria always knew that he had money issues, but she had been giving him all of this money and a lot of money right before Ben was born because she wanted to take care of the money issues before the second baby was born. But instead, he had just been spending it all.
On brothels and fucking donkey glory hole.
Donkey Dick's glory hole.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Donkey Dick's glory hole. But yeah, so he had spent all his money that she had given him, and he did not use it to pay off his debts. Now, Victoria had not told anyone else about Emile's financial problems or his infidelity. So she was mortified when the police came to visit, and her dad was there, and the police were telling her all of this right in front of her dad because he didn't know about any of this. Which, I mean, it's good in the long run that he finds out, obviously, because she needs support with dealing with all of this. But I can
see where she was like so embarrassed and just like didn't want to talk about it in front of her family. And they didn't know about it. You know?
Yeah. And she just burst out into tears thinking about how Emile treated her. But she still did not believe that he would ever try to kill her. I mean, yeah, he was a fucking piece of shit. He was a total prick, but he wasn't violent. He had never hit her. He had never tried to hurt her. He had never been physically violent. And that's the point I want to hammer home to anyone listening who's like, oh, yeah, but like my partner does some of these things or all of these things or one of these things. It's like,
but he's not violent.
But he's not abusive.
Yeah.
This is abuse before he tries to kill her. Yeah. This is an abusive,
emotionally
toxic,
and mentally abusive,
controlling, coercive, and manipulative situation.
And I think what's the scariest part is that she was like so in love with him and so loyal to him that she literally didn't even believe the cops when they were telling her that he did this. She's like, no way.
But
I mean, he might be like unloyal, you know?
And this is the thing about the TikTok comments. Like, I keep talking about this, but like, people are like, of course he did this. He was texting the teenage girl or whatever. And it's like, but I see. It's like, put yourself in her shoes.
Yeah.
I see why she would not believe that he did this because he's never tried to hurt her. Well, like we've all dated a fucking asshole who I don't know, who cheats on you or who does something, but you would never, especially if he has never laid a hand on you, you would never just jump to believe. You're like, okay, the man's got some fucking, he behaves like a man child, whatever. Norman fucking Rockwell, shout out Lana Del Rey, but you would not be like, oh yeah, and I think you would try to murder me. Like even my worst boyfriend that I ever dated that I could think of, I'm like, he would never try and kill me.
That's what you think?
Exactly, that's my point. And we're kind of like laughing at the audacity of the situation, but this is a real thing. Not everybody who is murdered by their partner had been going through years of physical domestic violence. A lot of them had been in abusive situations for years that were not physical. And sometimes it doesn't get physical until it is trying to end your life. And so you have to understand that just because there's not physical violence doesn't mean you're not in a very dangerous situation. And we're not experts, so I'm not saying that, oh, just because he does, or someone you're dating is doing one of these things or some of these things and not to this extent or whatever. I'm saying you need to talk to a professional. You need to get some resources. We're not professionals. We're not a good resource. But if you're like sitting here like thinking about your own relationship while we're talking about this, that's enough of a sign to where you should talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about when it comes to this kind of stuff. Because again, there's not always violence leading up to murder. So anyway, thank you for coming to my TED Talk to get back to the story. But here's the thing. So I forgot about this. This gets even worse because while the police are telling her about this, they informed her that in one message, Emile told Stephanie that Victoria had been unfaithful and that Ben was not even his son.
What the
Obviously, this is not true.
I can't get any more angry at this fucking piece of shit. I can't even call him a man because I don't even think he's a fucking person.
No, he's a man-child. He's a big
monster.
boy.
That's what he is.
Yeah, he is. And this for Victoria, obviously this is not true. Victoria had never been unfaithful. Obviously Ben was his son. And this was just the final straw that like really shattered her perception of Emile. She felt like she did not know him at all.
Well, yeah, he's like trying to say that his son's not even his. Like, what the fuck?
But again, she's still like, but he's not a murderer. That's a big jump still for him to be a cheater and a piece of shit, but not a murderer. So the officers asked her if she wanted to make a new statement after finding this out, and she anxiously agreed. Despite not being fully convinced that Emile had done this, she goes downtown with them to the station, and the floodgates fucking open. She starts from the beginning, telling them all about when they first got together, how Emile was so obsessed with her, treating her like a princess, and she felt like the center of his world. Then she got into the small things, the little red flags that somehow snowballed into major issues like cheating and lying and the debt, and then eventually into the possible attempt on Victoria's life. Now, the officers asked if she believed it could have been an accident, but Victoria admitted, she said, slinks do not break. She knew it couldn't be an accident.
Ooh, that just gave me chills.
But she's like, slings don't fucking break. Nothing. That doesn't happen. Again, that's what shows you what an emotional state that this is because she knows, I mean, in her mind, she knows slings don't break. This was not an accident. Someone did this to her. Who would do this to her? Who had access to the chute? But she can't like break that barrier yet because she still is like, doesn't think that Emile did this.
Well, that, and I feel like in emotionally abusive relationships, they make you question yourself all the time. Everything that you think that is obvious and real, you're like, wait, but is it though? Because they told me it's not, so it must not be, you know?
Exactly.
And that's what's
has
scary.
Been grooming her mindset for years.
Yes.
For her to think this way, for her to think that he would never do something like this to her. And so that's why I get mad at these people who point at her like, oh, you dummy. Like, that's literally some of the shit comments. And it's like, I think these people don't know.
No.
And I don't know. Thank God I don't know. But it's like these people, I can just tell they don't have empathy.
Yeah, no.
They're not putting themselves in her shoes. They're putting her in their shoes. And
but
it's
I'm
like,
sure
that's not how it works.
But even, I mean, to their defense, if you have never been in an emotionally abusive, if you have never experienced that or don't know enough about it, if this was me, I would have fucking noticed, you know? Right. I would leave him too.
And we all like to believe that we would. And some people do, and some people do. But it just depends on your life before that, your history, what you've dealt with before. You know, do you know the warning sign? And I just don't be in the fucking, you will be blocked immediately. On TikTok, there's too many comments. I can't block everybody that says, I'll try, but I can't. But like, I can block, if you leave a Spotify comment, I can block you, and I have done it a lot of times before. I will block you if you piss me off. So just
wait. So does that mean they can't listen to the episodes then on
not
Spotify?
on Spotify, but like they could make an account somewhere else. Like they could make a new account, or they could listen somewhere else or whatever.
Okay.
But I blocked that one lady that was saying mean stuff about you, dude.
Yeah,
I
on
was
Instagram,
like,
she was bitch.
I'm like, later, lady.
Yeah.
Later, loser.
Later, hater.
Later, hater. Anyway, so she knows slings don't break. They then asked Victoria about the weeks leading up to the fall. How was Emile acting? Did anything out of the ordinary happen? And that's when it hit her. The gas leak. Emile,
I forgot about the gas leak.
Emile had reacted so aggressively and so defensively when she joked to him, "Are you trying to kill me?"
Oh my God.
The same way he did when she had asked him if he was seeing other women, or if he had smoked in the car when it obviously reeked of cigarettes, or if he had taken money from their joint account. All of which he viciously denied. How dare you? How could you ever believe I would do something like that? But Victoria knew that she had been right about them all. And that instantaneous defensiveness was a reaction that Victoria had become very accustomed to. Each time he asked, "How could you accuse me of such a thing?" it was just a transparent tell that he had indeed done such a fucking thing.
Yep.
And the reaction to Victoria's joke about the gas leak when she texted him saying, "Are you trying to kill me?" it had been exactly the same. How could you accuse me of such a thing? And she was just
never.
And it's so funny because she was literally just kidding. She was just kidding.
She was fucking right.
Yeah. Yeah, she was just kidding, but it's the reaction. When they asked her, did anything weird happen? She goes, the gas leak, and she goes, oh my God.
The math is mathing.
The math was mathing. The puzzle pieces were piecing.
Yep.
They were holing, actually. They all came together in that moment. And this is the first inkling, the first realization that her husband, the man whom she loved and devoted her life to, might have truly been trying to kill her.
Damn.
And this was obviously devastating. She did not want to believe it. She struggled with shock and denial. And in initial police interviews, she even downplayed some of her earlier statements about, you know, the way he treated her and things he said. And what she was worried that maybe she had exaggerated some of these things due to the anger and emotion she felt over his cheating. Part of her was clinging to the hope that this was all some horrible misunderstanding. For a time, Victoria couldn't publicly accuse Emile of trying to murder her. The notion was too painful to accept, and she still believed Emile to be innocent, at least of trying to kill her. So really, okay, this is what we're going to see. This is a very slow process of acceptance. She, again, at this point, she doesn't think he did it, but she's thinking, wow, there's a lot of stuff pointing to that maybe he did. Mm-hmm. And she's kind of feeling like she wants them to keep investigating so she can get that one piece of evidence that's going to prove it's not true. You know what I mean? She's like, oh my God, this is kind of looking like he did try and kill me multiple times. But she's waiting for that one thing to come out that's going to be like, oh my God.
Like yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like the saving.
But she's still not fully there. She's still not fully realizing that he had done this to her, either of these things. And on top of this, Victoria's not just struggling with what happened to Emile and her physical healing. She's also struggling with the PTSD from the fall. She often had nightmares about the fall, like literally herself falling and smacking into the ground and the ground shaking. And this made it difficult to sleep.
Yeah.
So scary. So scary. And she found her life in shambles. She was sleep deprived and she was temporarily disabled. She was a mother taking care of 2 children by herself. She did have help from her family, thank God. But she had to try to explain to April why her daddy wasn't around, having to live by the strict rules set by investigators because she wasn't allowed to contact Emile. She wasn't allowed to do certain things. She wasn't allowed to leave the country. But you know what's funny? You know who was allowed to leave the country? Emile. I don't know why. Don't ask me why.
The fuck?
I can't understand it. It was like as long as he got it, whatever. But she's trying to heal herself physically, mentally, and emotionally while she processed the trauma of the fall and was currently experiencing new trauma from the investigation itself. She began to feel like she was going crazy. Those are her words, not mine. She said going crazy. And she sought help from a psychiatrist who told her, quote, "This is a normal reaction to an abnormal situation." End quote. True, but she writes in her book that she remembers thinking how useless that advice was and wishing that Emile could be home to help her.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, you're preaching to the fucking choir. I already know that.
Yeah.
Like, how do I fix it?
Yeah, but I think it's one of those things where it's like it just
takes
can't.
time. Yeah,
you can't. It's like it has to play out. There's nothing you can do to stop what's happening.
That's
Nonetheless,
so sad. That's sad because you can't control. I'm sure she just wants Emile to be this like great guy and love her, and she's like, I already have 2 kids with him. I just need help and blah blah blah. And she's coming to terms with the fact that he's not that person.
Exactly. And nonetheless, the evidence was piling up against him. It was piling up to prove to her that he was not this great guy that was going to come home and everything was going to be okay. Police carried out a search warrant at Victoria's house, which frustrated her. She felt like she was the one being treated like a criminal. The forensics team found tiny flecks of Emile's blood on the loosened gas fitting in their home that was loose, that caused the gas leak, indicating that he had been the one tampering with it. Victoria thought back to the night, and she remembered that she had noticed the gas leak the day after Emile had cut his hand pretty badly before he left to head back to the army barracks. So he gets this cut on his hand, he's bleeding and won't stop bleeding. That's at night, and then the next day she smells the gas leak. Then they find his blood on the fucking thing that was loose that had to be fixed by the guy that came to fix the gas. So, I mean, yeah. Now, phone
you
records.
did that one to yourself there, buddy.
Yeah, like you didn't wipe it up.
Yeah,
this fucking idiot. Now, phone records showed his flurry of messages to Stephanie on the days of both the gas leak and the skydive attempt, outlining his intentions to start a new life with her immediately.
How far apart were the gas leak and the skydiving?
I believe it was like a few weeks.
Oh, really?
A few weeks, yeah. But just a reminder, the children were home during the gas leak.
Oh my God.
He was going to kill them all. Like, the house would have blown up and the newborn baby and the toddler daughter would have been blown up in this.
You can't tell me that there's not something actually wrong with this man. He has some fucking issues.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Okay. There is something wrong with him. Now, with all of this new evidence, Emile was charged with 2 counts of Victoria's attempted murder, 1 for the fall and 1 for the gas leak, as well as 2 counts of reckless endangerment because the 2 children, like I said, were home during this gas leak. The case that emerged was jaw-dropping. Prosecutors painted Emile as a man driven by greed, lust, and a callous disregard for human life.
That sums him up pretty well.
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty.
It's pretty accurate.
And they forgot fucking loser.
Yeah,
they forgot that he's a fucking loser. But other than that, I feel like they nailed it.
That tracks, yeah.
Now, in court, they laid out his motives clearly. He wanted the insurance money that he had taken out on Victoria without her knowledge of £120,000. And he wanted that insurance money to solve his financial problems.
How can you take a life insurance policy out on somebody and then not know about it? I didn't know that was possible.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a thing. You can take one out on your partner because if they die, you're the one that has to deal with the financial issues. I think it's probably limited who you can. I don't know.
That's crazy.
This is one of the things that my dad's going to be like, you guys really should have Googled. I have 16 screens in front of me, guys. Google it yourselves. Respectfully, love you. Love you all. But yeah, we'll one day cover that. But right now, I'm not going to get into it.
Okay.
But yeah, he takes out this insurance policy and basically he wants to get rid of his debt and he wanted to be free to pursue his relationship with Stephanie without the messy burden of a wife and kids. And I guess he figured, okay, I guess the gas leak didn't work, so I guess I'll let the kids live. I don't know. I don't know his intentions with the children.
Well, according to him, he doesn't even have his fucking son is not his son, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. And he even resented Victoria's success. That was another thing that they point to. Victoria was much more successful than him, like when it came to being an army officer. He allegedly feared that if she divorced him, his or her rank and credibility could harm his career. It would make him look bad. So he thought it was better that she just never got the chance because she did a better job. She was a higher rank. She was well respected. And spoiler alert, he fucking wasn't.
Yeah, because she's not a piece of shit like he is, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And as one investigator succinctly put it, quote, "It's quite clear that Emile Cilliers was trying to engineer a situation where he could kill his wife, run off with his lover, collect the money from an insurance policy, and have a lot of sympathy because his wife had apparently died in a dreadful accident," end quote. Again, he forgot to mention that he's a fucking loser.
Yeah.
But other than that, nailed it. Now, it was the perfect crime in his mind because it just looks like an accident, like a skydiving accident. Who would know? Except, of course, the fact that Victoria survived. That was a real fluke.
Well, that
in his
and all
plan.
of his fucked up behavior before that led up to that. So
exactly. And I don't know if you guys, I put this sentence in here like it's not painfully obvious at this point, but really, Emile's not nearly as clever as he thinks he is. Emile first went to trial in 2017, 2.5 years after the fall, and Victoria was, of course, called as a witness. She answered their questions honestly, but she told the court that she may have exaggerated some of her statements to police about Emile's human dumpster behavior due to her emotional state at the time. So
could have been meaner, in my opinion.
I agree.
In my humble opinion,
she
wasn't mean enough.
I don't know, like, verbatim what she told them, but I think she could have gone twice as hard, probably. Yeah. But like, that's the thing is, been hard enough. She still is not fully convinced that he did this. So I think she's trying to find this happy medium of like, she wants this trial to happen. She wants to hear all the evidence come out because she wants to know what happened. She wants to know if he did this, but she doesn't want to lead it one way or the other. She's trying to tell the truth, but be as neutral as possible.
She's trying to be Switzerland until she has all the facts.
Exactly, because she just felt conflicted. Like, she still hoped that Emile hadn't done this, but she wanted the truth to come out. Now, the prosecutor then asked her if she had lied about anything during those statements, because Victoria's like, well, you know, I said all this stuff, but maybe I exaggerated. And the prosecutor's like, well, did you lie about anything? And she's like, well, no. So
they're like, okay, cool.
Exactly. So they asked Victoria questions about her extensive skydiving expertise. They asked her, how likely is it for a main parachute to fail? And she said, 1 in every 750 to 1,000 jumps on average. They then asked, how often does a reserve chute fail? And she said, 1 in a million. So think about both of those failing. It just doesn't
literally
happen,
never
really.
happens.
Like, yeah, statistically,
that's why there's
never.
a reserve parachute.
Right. Now, while she was on the stand, they presented messages from Emile to Carly and Stephanie, asking about where she was and what she was doing at the times that some of these messages were sent. Okay. This is when she learned that Emile had been texting Stephanie while she was literally giving birth to Ben.
I would be so fucking mad if I was her. The amount of restraint I would have to not just beat the shit out of this man.
If you remove the fact that he tried to murder her twice, even without that, finding out that your husband was doing this while you're giving birth, while you're in the hospital, whatever, let's just say this was an accident. It wasn't, but let's say it was. I would be traumatized from that alone.
Yeah.
That is fucking traumatic.
Well,
that is
you're like welcoming this
somebody.
This beautiful child into the world. It's supposed to be a great, happy time moment, and then you find out that he was cheating on you the entire time.
I can't even. It genuinely makes me sick to my stomach a little bit.
Part of me just wants to commit a crime. I don't know what happens to this guy, but if he's in jail, part of me just wants to commit a crime just to see him in jail and chop his fucking fingers off, man. Prison time isn't enough.
I'm feeling emotional about the situation, so I don't mean what I'm going to say, but I do feel like there should be some type of room for cruel and unusual.
Like, push him out of a fucking helicopter plane with no parachutes and see if he survives.
No. So this is not the only fucking horrific thing that she learns through these trials, though, because it was through the trial and articles about the trial, because she wasn't allowed to be there until she testified. Mm-hmm. She starts to learn the details of Emile's affair with Stephanie, as well as the fact that Emile had still been sleeping with Carly from time to time while Victoria was pregnant with Ben and after she gave birth, which is fucked because Victoria trusted Carly at that point. Like, she had met Carly, you know, because he had kids with her and, like, they had gotten along and she would see the kids and whatever. And she would even send Ben and April to stay with Carly for a time, especially while she was recovering, like, from her injuries. She sent the kids to stay with Carly, so give them a break. And Carly was fucking sleeping with Emile. So she's just feeling like absolutely betrayed in every way, shape, and form. And this fucking blew her out of the water because obviously she had suspicions that he had been cheating and she had seen messages from Stephanie, but she had never once suspected that anything weird was happening with Carly and Emile.
I'm going to say I did because I didn't like Carly from the fucking first part of this.
Yeah, honestly.
What did she say? She said something that I was like, I don't like that.
She was like
trying to tell her.
Yeah. The first time that she met, she blew the whole thing about the fact that Emile had other kids with another lady. And she was like, oh, never mind. I'll let him tell you about that. Like, shut the fuck up, Carly.
Yeah.
Actually, don't shut up. Keep talking. What a dick move. She also learns from the trial about that £120,000 life insurance policy, which, again, she had no idea about. Now, as for Emile's defense, can you guess what it was?
I don't even want to fucking know at this point.
That Victoria was suicidal and that she had tampered with her own parachute.
Wow, Emile.
What? I just at this point, just fucking give it up and just don't traumatize this woman more. So they claimed that, you know, oh, I would never, how dare you accuse me of doing something like this?
His defense team is probably just like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, thanks for giving me the hardest fucking case.
Yeah, like, literally. So this is the way they frame it. He never would have killed Victoria because he would have been financially ruined without her. Not because, oh, that's his wife and the mother of his children. That was their defense because they knew there was so much evidence that he was such a fucking piece of shit that they were like, well, he never would have killed her because she was the only thing keeping his finances going.
Which isn't true because that's why he took out the life insurance policy on her.
Yeah, just the fucking audacity of that. I can't even believe it.
Yeah, that's next level.
Now, astonishingly, that first trial's jury failed to reach a verdict. Mistrial.
How?
I don't know. They couldn't reach a verdict, apparently.
I think it's pretty fucking crystal clear what happened.
I agree, but that's just me. Now, after the trial, articles came out criticizing Victoria for defending Emile. They said she went up and defended him, which really wasn't what she had done.
Shut the fuck up. Seriously?
She even started receiving letters in the mail from strangers, rudely writing, quote, how can you believe him, end quote. Online blogs popped up, some criticizing Victoria for not condemning Emile, others calling her a jealous liar, trying to put her husband in prison just because he cheated on her.
I hate people so much.
Me too. These are the TikTok. These are the TikTok.
These
nowadays,
are the people that are on TikTok commenting stupid shit.
Exactly.
Because they have nothing better to do with their life.
Literally. Prosecutors pressed for a retrial, though, because they're determined that they're not going to let this would-be murderer
I'm sure the prosecutors
go.
are like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, what?
Exactly.
How much more evidence do you need?
Yeah. Now, Victoria was devastated knowing that she was going to have to live through a second trial. Because this is going on for years, okay?
Well, that, and she has fucking random-ass people telling her that she's doing the wrong thing and not trying. Fucking people, man.
People be peopling. Now, the second trial in April 2018 found Victoria on the stand again. And even more new horrific details were revealed. This time, they detailed Emile's visits to sex clubs and, paying for sex workers, his creepy text to the teenage babysitter, and the public laid into Victoria for staying with a man who would hit on a teenager. Completely ignorant of his manipulation that led her to believe that his phone had been hacked. Because remember, that was his excuse that he made her believe was like, oh, my phone was hacked and whatever. And people are like, oh my God, well, this is your fault for staying with a man who would hit on a teenager. And she's like, well, I didn't believe that he had hit on this teenager. You know what I mean? Again.
That's how deep that relationship she was, dude. Like,
Exactly. So It was during the retrial that Victoria finally began to accept the fact that Emile had indeed tried to kill her twice and her children once. So we're years into this. Finally, during this second trial, she is accepting that, oh, he did this. Like, the more details that come out throughout these trials, oh, he did this. I mean, there's nothing that is for him. There aren't details coming out that are making her question, oh, maybe he didn't do it. It's like everything that comes out is just piling on. And she is actually in court for the verdict. And for her, it was a surreal and heartbreaking moment as Emile was finally found guilty.
Yeah.
Yeehaw.
I love
but
justice
for
being
her,
served.
it was heartbreaking because the man she once called the love of her life was officially branded as a criminal who had tried to kill her. Even then, she admitted, quote, she could not see him as a killer, end quote. And she was controlling her emotions for the sake of their kids. She didn't break down. And it would take time for her heart to catch up to her head. She knew that he had done this at this point. Logically, she had accepted that. But like emotionally, she couldn't understand how this happened. And Emile, for his part, he showed no remorse. He lied over and over again throughout these trials, sticking to his far-fetched stories, and even took the stand in his own defense to essentially blame everyone but himself. And the judge, who was Mr. Justice Sweeney, was unsparing in his condemnation of Emile.
Hell yeah.
At the May 2018 sentencing, the judge told Emile, quote, this was wicked offending of extreme gravity. You planned these attempts to murder your wife in cold blood for your own selfish purposes. That your wife recovered at all was miraculous, end quote. The judge noted the profound physical and psychological harm that Victoria suffered and how Emile had betrayed the tremendous trust that she had placed in him. He called Emile, quote, a person of quite exceptional callousness, end quote. I was like, oof, that was good. He said that he was a man who would stop at nothing to gratify his own desires. Emile Cilliers was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 18 years to serve before any possibility of release. In practical terms, that basically just means that he'll be behind bars until his late 50s, if not longer. And if he ever does get out, he will be closely monitored.
In my humblest opinion, I don't think this man should ever see the light of day again.
I just think that the ramifications for attempted murder should be the same as murder. Just because you're bad at it, and
just because you failed and didn't do it with everything else in his life he failed at. Attempted murder.
If you had committed 2 murders, you would probably spend life in prison. And I just think he should have gotten life in prison. That's just me.
I agree.
Now, he did get life in prison with a minimum of 18 years, so like he could still spend life in prison. But the first time he'll be up for parole, he'll be in his late 50s. So I don't know.
Something tells me he's not going to learn his lesson.
Right. I just because all he cares about is himself, you know? Now, detectives later remarked that society was, quote, a little safer with him locked away, end quote, describing Emile as, quote, a dangerous, cold, callous, selfish man who cares only about money and his sexual conquests, end quote. Again, they forgot loser, but that's okay. The public watched in astonishment as details of Emile's double life made headlines. The sex, the lies, the almost murder sounds like something out of a crime novel, yet it was disturbingly real. Victoria knew that there was one more part of this nightmare that she would have to live through before she could finally begin to heal. Telling her daughter why she would no longer be seeing her daddy. And too young to truly understand the gravity of her words at the time, April took it quite well, which was a relief to Victoria. But she did explain that, like, daddy's in jail because daddy tried to hurt mommy and whatever. And she kind of said, like, April was like, oh, okay. And, like, went and played. And that's how young, like, these kids they won't remember him.
Yeah, they don't understand what's going on. Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's, in my mind, I'd like to think that that's a good thing. But my heart breaks for these children because they don't get to have a father. And after sentencing, Emile began writing letters to Victoria and calling her from prison, trying to win her back. They don't quit, these guys. They don't quit. You could literally be sentenced to prison for attempting to murder her twice. And they're like, but baby, I'll change.
After trying to say that she did it to herself.
Yes, he tried to say that she did it. Oh my God.
Hey, baby, I'm so sorry I did
I'm
that.
not laughing.
I just messed up a little bit, but I miss you so much.
And literally, I hate to, I'm not laughing at this. I'm laughing at the fucking audacity.
Yeah.
The audacity. It never ends.
This man,
It
Emile.
never ends. Oh my God. He told her, quote, "You're all I have left," end quote. Whose fault is that?
Oh,
Emile?
yeah, where's Carly and Stephanie, huh, bitch?
Oh, Carly and Stephanie don't want to sleep with you after you're in prison for attempting to murder me. Oh my God. Again, just a.
That's what I'm saying. He's got something wrong. He's got issues.
I feel like he's like a narcissist. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Don't quote me on that. Someone's gonna get mad I said that. But that's what it's giving. It's giving narcissistic a little bit.
A narcissist, all of that.
So he starts writing all these letters to Victoria, and he's calling her from prison, trying to get her back. And his tone was really just, it reminded her of the early days of their relationship when he just treated Victoria like this princess and like the world revolved around her. And at first, Victoria indulged him because you have to think, and indulge him not in like taking him back, indulge him in as in having conversations with him, because these trials went on. They ended years after he had done this to her. She had not spoken to him once since the first time the police came to the house and they were like, we arrested him. She was not allowed to speak to him. So she had fucking questions.
Well, yeah, as anyone would. Like, hey, why did you fucking try to do that and not just maybe leave instead? I don't know.
Right. So she had questions. So she did like talk to him for a bit. But after a while,
hey, motherfucker, don't miss you, but I do have some questions though.
Yeah, but after a while, she knew that there was like nothing left for her to gain by speaking with him. Like, she doesn't really go into detail about this in the book, but about what the conversations were about or what the questions were. But she just was like, oh, this is okay. So I think either he answered some of them or he just wasn't giving honest answers or something, to where she was like, well, this is pointless.
She's like, this is only going to hurt me.
So at that point, she tells Emile to stop contacting her, and she finally filed for divorce. And I think I forgot to mention, he was dishonorably discharged as well, and he was stripped of all military rank.
Good.
Yeah. Now, in the end, there are really no winners in this story. Emile's 6 children have to grow up knowing that their father is a convicted attempted murderer. And 2 of them will eventually have to understand that their dad was willing to risk their lives in order to kill their mother. Victoria herself had to grapple with the shattering realization that her husband, the man she once adored, consciously plotted to kill her. She spent years recovering physically and mentally, and she says that trust does not come easy after such a shocking betrayal. And I wouldn't think it would. I mean, I can't even imagine. I genuinely can't imagine. But if there is one theme in this story, I think, and this is my opinion, I think it's forced resilience. And while Victoria is amazing and everyone is special in their own right, and I don't mean to be like cheesy about it, there's nothing inherently special about Victoria besides like her uniqueness as a person. But there's nothing that inherently makes her stronger than the average person before all of this happened to her. Me and Emily were joking earlier, oh, we wouldn't have recovered as quickly. And maybe that's true, whatever. But the point is that Victoria had no fucking choice but to find the strength to reclaim her life. She had no other choice. She had to become resilient. And I think that's something that's important to remind people of, because if you're in a situation, and hopefully not anything even close to this type of situation, but if you're in the situation where you feel like you don't know how you can possibly get through it and you're not strong enough or whatever, the point is that when you are forced and you have no other option, you will find a way. You will find resilience. You will find strength that you maybe didn't have before, but you will create it. And it takes time, but it's forced resilience. It's not something that you just already had. And so we look at Alison Botha and we look at Victoria Cilliers. We look at some of these families of victims and we say, we can't even imagine how could you ever get through it. And they have no other choice because these people are amazing. They are amazing. They are strong. They are resilient, way more than like me and Emily are sitting here. But I also want to convey the message that there's nothing different from them. There's a lot of things different, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
If you are put in one of these situations, you can do it too. And it's not easy. It's not fun. It's not whatever. But I don't want people to think like, oh, I wish I could be that strong, or oh, I could never do that, because when you find yourself in that type of situation,
well, I think that's just like human instinct too. It's the natural will to survive. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
exactly. And yeah, I don't know if that made any sense, but those are my thoughts. Sorry.
I was picking up what you were putting down.
Okay. I'm like, I feel like I'm blabbing, but like my point is, I just want people to understand that you're stronger than you think. And if you have to, let's say this relationship is ringing a lot of bells for you, and if you're feeling like, oh, I wish I was stronger so I could leave, like you can. You'll get to a point where you will be forced to find the strength. And I'm sorry that you will get there, because that's
a lot to go through.
But if you get the resources and get some help to get out of this relationship safely, you absolutely can. Now, Victoria's reclaiming of her life was marked by a fitting leap of faith as she once again leaped from a plane in a tandem jump to raise money for the emergency response organization that had saved her life after her fall 3 years ago.
That is one badass bitch right there. If that happened to me, you couldn't catch me 20 fucking miles from any kind of skydiving.
First of all, you couldn't catch me today.
Yeah, that's
skydiving. So, yeah, she literally skydives again. I can't. When I read that sent me.
Yeah,
I was
holy
like,
shit.
what? Because she talked about she had all this PTSD and like nightmares about the fall and stuff. And
you know what?
She
She
just
said
was
my
like,
psychiatrist
"Fuck you,
isn't helping, so I'm going to figure out my own way to go through
if
this
that
shit.
would have been me, I would be falling through the sky and I would be like, fuck you, Emile. That would be me. But yeah, she's amazing. And she didn't just do it for fun. She did it raising money for the emergency response organization. What do they call it in the U.S.? The helicopter ambulance.
Oh, Life Flight?
Life Flight. It's probably not the same in the UK. But so this is 3 years later. She's restless the night before the jump, but she kept reminding herself that her friend that she was doing the jump with, Nick, she's like, he's going to take good care of me, because she's doing a tandem thing. So she's not going to have to pull the parachute and all of that.
Thank fucking God.
Now,
what I would be thinking. I'm like, I'm not touching that. You quadruple check that those fucking sling ties are in there before we go anywhere.
Now, her dad and her children watched as Victoria and Nick safely floated to the ground that day.
Aww.
And
that had to have been so fucking emotional, dude.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine. It gives me goosebumps, literally, just thinking about it. And with this jump, she raised 5,000 pounds in donations. Now, she returned to skydiving not just as a hobby, but as a form of empowerment, refusing to let Emile's actions steal her passion.
Fuck yeah.
In time, she even found love again.
Hell yeah, sister.
She met a man through the parachuting community.
Hell yeah.
Someone who, by fate, had been there the day that her parachute was sabotaged and she fell.
Shut the fuck up.
And she didn't know him before, and then like she goes back to parachuting, and then he was the yeah,
I was there that day.
Yeah, isn't that fucking crazy?
That's kind of cool though, because then you're like, well, you were kind of like, you went through this with me, a little bit.
That's what she says.
So
is
cool.
like she says that he kind of understood her trauma without needing explanation.
Yeah.
Because like even though obviously he hadn't experienced it in the same way, that's traumatic to watch.
Oh yeah.
I don't know that he was like actually watching, but he was there that day. I don't know exactly where he was, but. With him, Victoria has been able to start this new chapter of her life, one that is grounded in love and honesty and respect and dignity.
I saw this thing on Facebook today that said, keep giving out love because it'll come back to you in this time, a different lifetime. It'll come back to you in different ways. And I feel like that's happening to her.
100%. 100%. Now, Victoria will be the first to say that she is lucky to be alive. It's a miracle that she survived a 4,000-foot fall and lived to see justice served. Her story is a harrowing tale of coercive control and calculated violence, of a woman who didn't realize the danger lurking in her own home until it nearly killed her. It leaves us with some unsettling questions about how well we truly know those closest to us. But it's also a story, like I said, of resilience. Victoria endured the unthinkable and came out the other side. Scarred, yes, but not broken. Victoria, like I said, wrote a book about her experiences, and it is titled, I Survived. I Married a Charming Man, and Then He Tried to Kill Me. Guys,
that's a mic drop of a title right there.
When I fucking and I feel this way, I said this about Alison Botha's book, and I've been listening to true crime podcasts for years, and every time they're like, oh, we read this book, you have to read it, and I'm like, you have to read these books. And by the way, this one you can listen to as an audiobook. Alison Botha's, I believe you can listen to as an audiobook. There's another case I'm covering coming up that you can listen to. As you have to read these books. This book had me sobbing. And I listened to the audiobook. If you are listening to this podcast on Spotify, you can listen to the audiobook on Spotify for free. If you like our deep dives, this is the deepest dive into this case. It's like 10 hours of this case. I binged it. I literally spent days listening to it. Everything I was doing, I had a headphone in and I was listening. And I know I went into a lot of detail, probably, I think, more detail than other podcasts do about the little things of the relationship. But there is so much in this book about the relationship and everything that is just, I couldn't even get into it. Like, we would have been here for 10 hours too.
Yeah.
And hearing it from her own words and how she feels about
point
it.
Of view is like,
and her writing style and everything. This book fucking shook me. It shook me. And like I said, you can listen for free on Spotify. If you have Audible, you can listen on Audible. If you want to get a free trial of Audible, we have a code. I think it's...
Yeah, we do.
I think it's just audibletrial.com/a trial by podcast. I'm not 1,000% sure on that, but it's in our link tree. But I found it so inspiring, and I just highly recommend it. And I just want to stress that. Now, with that being said, because it's her story, I don't want to tell her whole story. I want to tell an overview of the story, but I did want to share like one quote from this book because it just really shook me to my core. I think this is from the, what do they call it after the last chapter? There's like a, I don't know, author's note or something.
Oh.
I don't know. But.
Oh, yeah, a letter from the author.
I don't know. But after telling the whole story, she writes, quote, I hope that by sharing my story, I have helped you better understand my life. It took me a long time to accept that what Emile was doing was abuse. I never considered myself someone who could fall for a man like the one that Emile turned out to be. Sometimes it's not as obvious as a black eye or a split lip as the stereotypes would have you believe. Emile was smarter than that. Over the years, he worked to place more and more subtle control over my life until I was completely trapped and I didn't even know it. Thousands of women across Britain suffer under coercive and manipulative behavior, just like Emile's every day. And I want to stand as living proof that justice can be won. There was a time when I thought I would never escape the shadow that Emile had cast over our family. But now I know that there is life after abuse, and the life I'm leading today is one full of hope and excitement for the future. End quote. Do you have goosebumps? Because I have goosebumps.
Yes, I do.
I felt like she just summed that up. And that whole author's note, I can't remember what they called it in the book, but that whole like little end chapter about the book itself, she just sums it up so beautifully. I feel like that paragraph really stuck out to me. And I feel like it just serves as a reminder that if you have gone through, are going through, or will go through in the future an abusive relationship, it's a reminder that with time, you can find a life full of hope and excitement, just like Victoria did. Because she says, I'm going to repeat this from her quote. There was a time when I thought I would never escape the shadow that Emile had cast over our family. But now I know that there is life after abuse, and the life I'm leading today is one full of hope and excitement for the future. And this is after the man tried to murder her twice, almost killed her children with the gas leak, all of this cheating and whatever. So if you are in a situation where you have children and you have debt and you're stuck in this marriage and whatever, maybe it's not abusive to this extent, but he's cheating or something, and you feel like there's no way out, I say, again, get the resources. Go to spotify.com/resources. You can find resources so you can do it safely. But Victoria's life is now full of hope and excitement, and yours can be too. That's the message I want to convey with this story, is that Victoria was a special person, but there was nothing inherently in her that made her able to deal with this situation more than you can.
Yeah, like she didn't get dropped into a vat of fucking toxic waste
she didn't
and
just
turn
walk
into
through
a superhero.
This. Exactly. She didn't just walk through this easy peasy, and no one can. But my point is that like you can get through whatever you're dealing with, even if it has nothing to do with a bad relationship and you're just struggling with something in life. But that's the message I took from her story, and so that's the message I wanted to try and convey. So, like I said, if this story or the description of Victoria and Emile's relationship hits close to home for you, I would like you to take this as your sign that it is time to get out of that relationship. But you do need to talk to people and get support so you can do that safely. We are not experts on how to do that, so we ask that you visit resources.byspotify.com. I think if you go to spotify.com/resources, it takes to the same page. But find a professional resource to help guide you through whatever it is that you need to do. But protect yourself. Mm-hmm. And that is the story of Victoria Cilliers just being
an absolute fucking badass.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Woo! Huzzah!
Huzzah. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Damn, that was good.
Now, if you guys love the pod, make sure you're following us wherever you're listening so you don't miss out on any future episodes.
And while you're at it, we'd be forever in your debt if you had left us a 5-star rating.
For more content from us, you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok. Both are at A Trial by Podcast.
You can also follow us on our Facebook and join our Facebook group.
You can shop our merch by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting our website, atrialbypodcast.com.
A Trial by Podcast is a fully independent podcast. If you'd like to help support us, you can do so by donating through the link in our show notes.
The site we use for this is called Buy Me a Coffee, but don't worry, your donations will never be used for coffee or frivolous things, only for expenses related to running and growing the podcast. So thank you guys for your support.
Thank y'all. Huzzah.
Huzzah.